After the filters went in, her symptoms gradually improved to the point where she went back and had an MRI scan for her brain, and the plaques were gone. So there was not only an obvious improvement in her symptoms that you could tell, but the plaques were also gone. And so I began to work with people who have multiple sclerosis. And I'm just going to show you two videos. When I first started working with these individuals, I had no idea whether this would help them or not. And so I would go in saying, look, I've got these filters. Some people tell me it might help MS. I have no idea. Would you like to participate in an experiment that'll last a few weeks? And, you know, some people said yes, some people said no. After about the first 4 people I worked with who had absolutely miraculous improvement, that I couldn't believe when I saw it. I thought, you know, I will go to a conference, I will give a presentation, and they'll look at me and think I'm crazy, I'm exaggerating the results. So I started videotaping them because I actually didn't believe myself. So I was skeptical of what we were finding. This is a young man who has primary progressive multiple sclerosis. The highest level in his home was 410 units. He walked with a cane, had all sorts of balance problems, energy problems, depression. And what I did is I measured his home, filtered his home, and I videotaped him walking before the filters were put in and after. And I'd just like to show you what it looks like. You can see he sort of staggers a bit. This is 2 weeks later. Absolutely huge improvement. He stopped using his cane within about 3 days. He was convinced that it had nothing to do with the filters, that he was misdiagnosed as a relapsing, remitting MS. He then went shopping with his father, didn't take a cane with him, and within about 2 hours he couldn't walk to the car. His symptoms were so bad. So when he goes into a dirty environment, his symptoms come back, but as long as he's in a clean environment, he doesn't suffer the symptoms. This is another example of a woman. She was in much worse situation. The highest levels in her home were actually above 2,000, which is the highest this meter will record, and that came from a plasma television that her husband had purchased for her. Plasma TVs are notorious for producing dirty electricity. We filtered her home, and when I was there, I asked her if she would simply hold out her hands so I could measure them. Now, this is a woman who has 24 hours a day care, and this is how much her hands shook when she was trying to hold them still. And this is what happened 6 weeks later when I went back. There was absolutely no change in the medication she was taking. So I think, and by the way, not all of the people that we worked with who had MS benefited, so it's just some percentage of people with MS who are also electrically sensitive, whose symptoms will improve if they're not exposed to this radiation. So this is dirty electricity. It's been associated with multiple sclerosis, diabetes, asthma, attention deficit disorder, all of these symptoms for the teachers and for people who use light bulbs, as well as skin and migraine problems. Now, the level of dirty electricity in this room, at this outlet, are about 800 units, based on, with everything I have here. And I plugged in one filter, and the levels are down to 64. So it changes instantly. You can read it instantly. And that's something that most people can afford to buy, measure their home, find out if they're dirty. If they are and they're concerned about this, we've got a technical solution for it. So it's something that I think is fairly simple to deal with. Now, if this were true, they would have told us, right? That's what I hear all the time. Well, funny enough, in December 2009, Prevention Magazine had an article, "Is Dirty Electricity Making You Sick?" So the media that was very hesitant to publish any of this or to print any of this because it sounds absolutely outrageous. It just doesn't fit our understanding of these electronic and electrical devices. But they're beginning to have the courage to do this. And there's an excellent book written called Dirty Electricity. Electrification and the Diseases of Civilization, that just came out a few months ago, and that's written by Dr. Sam Millam, and that's available on Amazon.com. It's a very easy read. He shares his research results and how he got into this. He's an absolutely remarkable scientist, someone I have a great deal of respect and admiration for, and he's a real fighter. And he said he's just sorry he's not 40 years younger so he can continue doing this for another 40 years. But he's made incredible contributions to this field. I'd like to now shift to radio frequency radiation, and this is all the wireless technology that we're using. And a lot of it we generate within our homes, Wi-Fi, cell phones, computers that are Wi-Fi, cordless phones. It also comes from outside. This radiation penetrates through walls and roofs, so it's not something that's easy to shield, unlike dirty power that's fairly easy to filter. This is a little bit more complex. The three dominant devices in our home would include your cordless phone, your cell phone if you happen to be using it, simply because you're very close to it. And by the way, if any of you are using a phone, I suggest you get one of these. Okay, this allows you to talk on your phone just as though you were talking on a regular phone, and you don't even have to use hold your cell phone. So this is a really nice fashion statement that you can buy at roots.com, R-O-O-T-S, www.roots.com. And, you know, I carry this around primarily to make a statement, to allow people to recognize that this is not the ideal posture to microwave your brain. You can actually still use the technology, but use it in a safer mode. And so that's what I would recommend. That's actually a gift for someone. The one I have is red, but they come in pink and green, and so you can make a real fashion statement with them. Also, wireless routers for your computer, they radiate all the time. And that's something that I think you don't need to be exposed to in a home environment in most cases. You can have the Ethernet connection, and we're putting them in schools, which is absolutely disgusting as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, we have Wi-Fi outside of the home. We have something called WiMAX that's coming, and we have something called broadband over power lines that's a high frequency that comes along your electrical wires and contributes to dirty power. So the utilities and the wireless industry just don't care about your health at all. All they want to do is make a profit by putting all sorts of fun features, cameras, you know, music, everything on your iPhone, so you become totally addicted to it. And I think that's unfortunate. And the latest technology that we're all going to be exposed to are smart meters to regulate your electricity initially, eventually to regulate your water and gas. They're also going to be designing equipment that will talk to your smart meter, and so you will have this two-way connection within your home. The smart meter sends the information wirelessly to a node that goes back to the utility. And if you happen to live in an area with dense housing, an apartment building, a condominium, you are going to be exposed to much higher levels of radio frequency than previously. And there's groups all over North America trying to stop this from happening, because in homes that already have smart meters on them, those who are sensitive simply can't use that particular room closest to the smart meter. So their lives are really being adversely affected. Now, just a little information. Metal is a very good material to shield you against microwaves or radio frequency radiation. So if I were sitting at this desk and there was a source coming from here, a metal filing cabinet would actually reduce my exposure. However, if it's coming from outside and it's coming right through the window, which it will do, and it's bouncing off the filing cabinet, it can actually enhance your exposure. So when you're in the kitchen and you're using your microwave oven, and virtually every microwave oven except one that I've tested has leaked microwaves, if you have metal objects in your kitchen, they are basically bouncing off the magnetic fields, and you are having hot spots in that kitchen and you don't even know where they are. So you could be standing next to a fridge, a stove, bouncing back and giving you even higher levels of radiation. That's true also for things that we have on our body. Metal rim glasses, pacemakers, zippers, any kind of implant, metal implant. People who have implants in their knees that are metal or their hips, when they're exposed to microwave radiation, they will feel that part of the body heating up. Just as if you put aluminum foil by accident or metal into your microwave oven, as soon as you turn it on, it'll spark. And it's just reflecting the microwave radiation. And that's true for jewelry, for underwire bras, for example, for copper IUD devices. You're actually increasing the local radiation, the local hot spots whenever you have metal on your body. And many electrically sensitive people can't wear jewelry, partly for that reason. When we're dealing with radio frequency at a slightly higher level, we call it microwaves. And this is and some people use microwaves and radio frequency interchangeably. So microwaves is actually a part of the radio frequency spectrum, but at a higher level. And these are the primary sources that I'm going to be talking about: antennas, cell phones, cordless phones, and Wi-Fi. This shows you an apartment building in Toronto that has a tower on top of a building, and it has multiple antennas. The tower is simply a physical structure. It doesn't emit anything, but all of the antennas do. There are cell phone antennas also being placed on high voltage transmission lines. And so this is all increasing our exposure. And the problem is that we're placing them far too close to people. That's the real problem. In this apartment in Toronto, the people who live on the top floor in the penthouse have become ill about 3 months after the antennas were activated, and they can't live there anymore. This is a study that was done in Spain. It shows you in red people who live within 10 meters or 30 feet of a cell phone antenna, all the way out to 300 meters. The height of the bars are the number of respondents experiencing symptoms very often, starting with fatigue, and you can see how it goes down. And these are the symptoms in order: fatigue, sleep disturbances, headaches, feelings of discomfort. If you look at that list, everything in red are things that we tend to experience as we age. So I actually call this rapid aging syndrome. It's as though you're aging. Let's take a look at cell phones. This is a study that was done by Leonard Hardell. It came out just last year in 2009. And it was a study looking at other studies. And he found that there was, after 10 years of exposure to a cell phone, there's an increase in ipsilateral tumors, which are tumors on the same side of the head that you hold against the phone to your ear. For brain tumors, there was a 90% increase. For acoustic neuroma that affects your ear, 60% increase. And uveal melanoma that affects your eye, there was a 320% increase. In this study, they also looked at students under the age of 20 when they were first using a cell phone, and their brain tumor risk increased by 400%, and that was after 1 year of exposure. The conclusions that the levels to which we are exposed are unsafe, and that's fairly clear if you look at the studies. Children are much more vulnerable than adults, and it's very important not to have them exposed. This shows you the amount of radiation penetrating into the head from a 5-year-old child versus an adult, and these are the reasons that they're so sensitive. They absorb more energy. The tumors, if they're present, might develop in the midbrain. Their cells are reproducing quickly, and they have very poor immune system development, and they have much longer lifetime exposure. I think we really have a tsunami on our hands when it comes to mobile phone use. Very, very serious. If this were true, they would have told us, well, they have. There are countries around the world who are providing cell phone warnings so that children not use these, including the Federal Communication Commission came out with a warning in November 2009 that they were very quiet about. They didn't make a big noise about it, but basically they were saying to use the precautionary approach. It also affects sperm. How many people do you know who keep a cell phone in their pocket? And this is a study that came out in 2008 showing men who didn't use a cell phone versus those who used a cell phone more than 4 hours a day. There was a reduction in sperm count, sperm motility, viability, and there was an altered morphology of the sperm as well. So they didn't live as long, there weren't as many of them, and they didn't move as fast. And we're really experiencing infertility problems in a lot of Western countries, part of which could be due to this. Now, what about cordless phones? I'm actually going to run out of time, I realize that, so I'm just going to do this one thing and probably draw it to a close. We did a study with cordless phones, and I'm very concerned about cordless phones because they emit radiation whether or not you're using them. And I'm going to show you a quick demonstration here. I have a cordless phone here. I'm going to unplug my meters, and I'm going to turn this on, which measures radio frequency in this room, and you can't hear anything right now. If I put it close to this, but you can't hear anything, okay? If you can begin to hear something, someone's using the phone.